Hi Facebook, I'm Ellie Frost and this video is about breaking toxic relationship cycles. Relationships are coming up big time for me this month with my clients. It's obviously in the collective consciousness, an area that we, if we're connected, are likely to be needing to elevate in our lives, right? So breaking toxic relationship patterns. What are some of the things you can do? The first thing is you have to be able to spot them. You have to know what they are, right? Now, say you're not like me, well versed in psychology and personal development, that kind of thing. You might not cognitively know first, until you research things, especially if you've had unhealthy relationships growing up, you haven't had great role models. One thing you will always know is how somebody makes you feel. And if you're a healthy person, you'll know when you feel drained. You'll know when you feel like your boundaries are being crossed. You'll know when you feel awkward and uncomfortable and obliged and, you've got to take responsibility for someone else, that it's not really your job. You'll know how you feel. So trust that bit first, right? Because a big thing, which I posted yesterday about getting in these cycles, is that we don't trust ourselves. And we've often been programmed and conditioned to believe that how we feel doesn't matter. We need to just oblige others, all that stuff. So one, we've got to spot them. Two, we've got to know what it is in our energetic field and our way of being, our belief systems and programs that's a match to that behavior, to that toxic behavior. One, we've got to spot it. If we don't pick this up early enough, it will always escalate within a toxic situation, or more than likely, right? And sometimes it's just the universe trying to wake us up to say, look, this needs to be cleared in us. So we take responsibility by knowing that we are a match for certain things, not our fault whatsoever, but it is our responsibility to shift it. So start with how you feel. Be radically honest about how you feel around certain people, right? Because you don't have to know everything I know, like I'm saying about mind, psychology, that kind of thing. You haven't got to even label anything. You know when you feel drained. You know when you're in a conversation and you feel like you're being held hostage. You know when it's awkward for you to be able to get your needs met or set a boundary. Now, one thing that I teach people and I've become very aware of is that toxicity lives in what I call the grey areas. Typically in toxic relationships, there's a lot that's being unsaid. So there's a constant undercurrent, right? This is because, manipulators, predators pick on people who find it difficult to express what they want and need. So I teach people how to step into their authentic power. And authenticity to me means being true to who you are and what you want and need. When you're not able to do that, people can pick up on it and you're more likely to be manipulated, right? And not feel great. Now, we're not taught how to healthily express our needs and desires. We're not often taught how to set healthy boundaries. The thing to know about a boundary, and this is why it's important energetically, is a boundary is, it's not, we don't need to have a ton of boundaries. A boundary is, this is very much what I'm available for and what I'm not. Which means that I won't play with you on those terms. Where my boundary means this is as far as I'll go with this. And if this need isn't met or this situation isn't done in a certain way, then I can't participate in it. Now, for most of us, we don't trust ourselves, so our boundaries get pushed. And as soon as your boundary gets pushed and you're prepared to go outside of it, you lose trust with yourself. And when you lose trust with yourself, you lose personal power. Because now when you set a goal, you don't trust yourself with it. When you get scared of being around other people and you think you've got to hide and protect yourself the whole time because people can push you out of yourself. So the job to stay away from toxicity is to come into integrity, being true to who you are, what you want and need, right? Honouring your boundaries. Honouring your boundaries. Being aware of patterns that you don't want to participate in, right? And staying in integrity with yourself, making sure there's no grey areas or eliminating them, finding your voice, right? Because a lot of the time, what this toxicity is living in is expectations, right? So you know that when you're in a relationship and people have expectations that you've not agreed to. So here you are signing up to a contract that you don't even know what you're in, because when that person gave you a gift or when they, spoke to you, they've got terms, they've got strings attached, and you can feel that with certain people, right? You want to directly head on deal with that. Don't ignore it, because these undercurrents, unsaid stuff, these assumptions, expectations that you haven't agreed to, and then you start feeling responsible for, are what keeps us in these toxic cycles. It's part of it, right? Manipulators know they're doing that. People that push boundaries tend to push boundaries consistently. And it's not to say, like, say you have a client and they're late paying you, for example, and they say, goodness me, I'm so sorry, can I have a little bit more time? You feel okay with that and just say, look, okay, I need my payments on time, but in this instance, this once or whatever, I'll let that fly. For most people who are healthy, respect boundaries, they won't do it again, right? But for someone who's manipulative and toxic, oh yeah, they will not only do it again, they will also probably use that against you and say, well, you let it go last time, so so surely this time it's okay. So you get signs, right? And you'll feel it in your body. And it's not like the first time you see a potential red flag, you have to run. If you're strong in your authentic power, even as an empath, because I'm a highly sensitive empath and projector, so I'm a real sensitive, I'm a channel, I'm an intuitive, which means I'm highly sensitive. You have a superpower, not a weakness, if you can own that power. We know when this is going on. Now, you don't have to be a super empath and a channel and an intuitive. You know when you don't feel right. And for most people, it's not just stay away from toxic people. If you were going to stay away from all toxic people, you'd probably not have anyone to talk to in the world, because we're not all healed and whole. It's don't participate in toxic behaviours. Don't allow yourself to get as much as you can. And sometimes you can't help it, and it's trauma and it's bonded, and there's a whole bigger thing with narcissists and other things which I can help you with. But, you don't. If you're in your power, you are boundaried, you are clear and direct and prepared to communicate head on. And communication is something we're not taught that much, right? Then you're immune. You don't have to avoid everyone. But what you won't do is be a participant, a cooperative component in the toxic behaviours. Everyone is capable of a multitude of behaviours, right? And you'll notice that people show up differently with different people. A narcissist isn't narcissistic to all people. Many people will love a narcissist, especially a charismatic one, because they present a certain type of behaviour with a certain type of person and a different type of behaviour with other people, and they absolutely know. Predators in our world, they know who to target. They can fill the energetic gap, right? So we want to be whole. We want to be sovereign. We need to be boundaried. It's not a true boundary if you're not prepared to walk away. In business, it's great because, relationships are more upfront. We have to set terms and conditions, and we make it clear. And if it's your business, you determine the terms in which you work with someone. But in personal relationships, often we don't know what we've got into. We don't know. We don't make a contract and say, well, for being my friend, this is what I expect. And we tend to get a backlash, which is people's expectations, these assumptions. We feel guilty. We feel ashamed. We feel, sometimes walking on eggshells. So the point is, it's not to treat it as a business relationship necessarily, but to treat it truly. Get clear on your values. Get clear on who you are. If you're in a friendship, I've had friends where they're like, well, we were speaking a lot and now we're not speaking, there's an assumption on that. They're throwing some kind of obligation on me that I never agreed to. Just because we happen to see each other a lot this month doesn't mean that I'm committing to that for the rest of my life, So I have to explain, I either want, I've enjoyed our time together, but I don't feel that I'm under any obligation with my friends, right? And when it feels good to come together with someone, it's easy. So start with your integrity. we are not to just be scared of the world and to keep giving power to manipulators and narcissists and people because we are in fear of their power being bigger than ours. The dominant energy always wins. If your security, safety, lack of fear is bigger, they can't touch you. But if you've got holes and you're looking them to fill your unfulfilled needs, your unmet needs, and they can see that and exploit that, that's why we become targets, right? Start with the authentic power. Start with little steps this week into just in your areas of your life where there's any kind of discrepancy. Start feeling into, well, what are my wants and needs here? Where am I not speaking up? Where haven't I got my voice? What do I want to say that I don't know how to communicate? And be aware of, with some people that continue, if they show you they're going to continually push your boundaries, you probably can't communicate with them. The communication has been enough. You've been shown. Actions are louder than words. So you're not here to fix them. You're not here to prescribe to them what they should do. Again, that is an unhealed part of us that wants to kind of fix everything in other people rather than come into ourselves, self-partner, be sovereign, be whole, be true to yourself. Treat yourself like you would, parent yourself like you would your own child. Like you don't owe anyone anything actually that you haven't agreed to, and even then you get to change your mind as appropriate, right? Depending on the context. So if we're going to set a higher intention today, right? It's Monday, it's coming up to Christmas. I sit in this intention all the time spiritually, which is the highest intentions and outcomes for all, which means for me, for you, and for the greater good. Fueling these dynamics is not good for anyone. We enable toxic relationship dynamics. We disempower ourselves, and we show examples of this in the greater world. So by us being boundaried, us being in our authentic power, our truth, our sovereignty, and true to who we really are, who we are, what we want and need, we start the change in the world by taking care of ourselves first and being the example of that. We do enable these patterns. They wouldn't exist if we didn't enable them. It doesn't know that you know any better, If this is run in your household, in your family, in your upbringing, right, then it feels like safety. The brain goes familiar, ching, 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 safe, and gets drawn towards it. Plus, if you've got unresolved trauma, that trauma-ridden part of you will want to go subconsciously be drawn towards this experience. Sometimes even feel high when you first meet these kind of people, or feel a very strong connection, because it's trying to resolve unhealed childhood or adulthood or even previous life karma patterns. So trauma tells the brain, let's do it again. And so because it wants to resolve it, take your power back. But actually, you need to heal this in yourself. Be sovereign, and the more empowered you are in yourself, right, the more resolved it gets. It gets resolved by getting healed. It gets healed by being conscious of it, energetically shifting and moving it, and becoming something else, so that you're a match to something else, right? Trauma is constantly wanting to repeat itself because it constantly wants to be resolved, and the brain thinks by getting in the same scenario, I'll get to take my power back. Now that can happen when we hear stories of that, but you don't have to, because what it can do is re-traumatize you. So I run trauma release sessions. I've got so much going on with my work where we can resolve this energetically. I can bring consciousness to it. I can read it with you and shift it with you, because it's so fucking important. It doesn't get resolved when we keep re-traumatizing ourselves. All it does is keep eroding our self-worth. But if you can take some of these steps, where could I be a little bit more direct this week? A little bit more clear in my expectations? Where could I actually see having a voice, right? One, you want to do it when appropriate. I don't teach people just speak your truth out of context, because speaking your truth in areas where it's not appropriate and invited, is pretty toxic, actually. You know what I mean? But where it is appropriate is in your relationships, in the things that you think don't matter, that you don't say and let slide. That tends to escalate with people. So you can do this in very powerful ways. You can do it in ways that are not aggressive and not defensive, as long as you're not triggered. And if you are very triggered, it's best to take yourself out of the situation, feel your emotions, ground, breathe, level your head, and come back to it at a time where you're clear-headed. because when we're very emotional and very triggered, we can't think straight and we can't communicate effectively. But we do need to be better at not letting things slide. And it can be simple things like, look, that's just not okay with me. It just doesn't feel good. I don't feel right about that. Can we do it like this? I've noticed that you keep ignoring my request that we can do it this way. Is it okay with you? If not, I don't think I'm in. We can do it in gentle ways. We don't have to use you, especially if you're dealing, with another person. It's better not to put the blame on them, but to explain from me. I don't feel good about this. I need you to show up this way. I make it about you, your needs. That's standing in power, my authenticity, who I am, what I need and what I want, right? So the I language is very powerful because one, you're not putting blame on someone else. You're taking responsibility for how you feel. You're building trust and integrity with yourself and you're owning your needs, right? Power isn't, people take power over people, and honestly, that's weak. Power is being so strong, so sovereign, so energetically aligned, right? That you are going to stand in your integrity no matter what, and no one can take you out that game. No matter what, right? That's power. And actually, people don't fuck with you there, We want to get more comfortable with adversity. It doesn't mean there's a problem. You're being called into a different level of power. And it's not for us to shy away and dim down and feel scared and that we can't handle other people and relationships because we're getting drained and we're getting pulled and we're not able to be energetically stable. I can help you with that. It's very important that we stand a lot stronger than that and very gently. You don't have to be forceful. There's a book called Power, Not Force. It's like David Hawkins. And I think, that's a great phrase. True power does not need force. True power doesn't need force. It's just powerful and it repels all that other stuff. So, and is magnetic to good, right? So anyway, any questions, let me know. This seems to be a big topic this month for people, coming up a lot in the collective. Always ground yourself, go back into your heart, go back into your truth. Everything's an invitation for you to step into new levels of your own authenticity, your own truth, your own power, right? And you get to take that back at any time, no matter what you'd agreed to. If there are things in your life where you're seeing there's expectations and assumptions being made that you haven't agreed to and you're not happy with, I challenge you this week to speak up, to say, look, and here's a really good way of doing that. Hey, look, I've noticed this. Do you mind if we could try it this way? Because it just doesn't feel good to me. Or you just bring up that thing that, the elephant in the room. Look, I'm feeling that there's an undercurrent here. Have I done something to upset you? Get things on the table. That absolutely claims your power. What's the worst that can happen? I mean, in some situations, and I've been with people that are pretty aggressive, it can be a little bit more scary. But if you make baby steps towards this all the time, right, you'll get stronger and better at it. And we want to get much better at this. We don't have to force our way. We don't have to overpower people. We don't even need to fight and create conflict. We just need to own our truth, which isn't throwing it on someone where it's not welcome. We need to have consensual conversations, not just throw stuff in people's face because it's our truth, but where it is appropriate, where it's affecting you, where you're in relationship, where your boundaries aren't being respected, where the context, like here, it's my channel, so therefore I get to speak my truth because it's my Facebook. Where it is appropriate, we need to be honest and in integrity with it. The more we do that, that's what the power of speaking your truth is being true to yourself when appropriate and in context, not forcing on other people when it's not relevant or not appropriate. That's true power. It's in the unspoken, in the felt, in the toxic grey undercurrent. These things dwell, live and grow like disgusting fungus, right? So we get to change that. And I really want to inspire you to do it. It needs to be done on the planet more than ever. And we can do it in such a beautiful way that creates connection and just doesn't feed this ick, in our dynamics. So lots of love. I will speak to you soon.